Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. It's well, after 100 years of class days, finally you get a British speaker. What took you so long? Did that little disagreement of 1776 rankle so much? And why now? Is it because the British election campaigns are only 4 weeks long? For whatever reason, it is an honor to be here and to say to the Yale College Class of 2008, you did it, you came through. From all of us to all of you, congratulations, well done. The invitation to a former British Prime Minister to address a college which boasts 5 former presidents, many former vice presidents, senators too numerous to mention, is either to give me an exaggerated sense of my own importance or you a reduced sense of yours. It was Churchill or Oscar Wilde, and there is a difference, who called us two nations divided by a common language. Actually, it may have been George Bernard Shaw. And so we are. But you try being in the European Union. I had an unfortunate experience earlier in my premiership when doing a press conference with the French Prime Minister. I speak French, but not quite as well as I thought. We decided to do the press conference live in French. I was asked whether there were any policy positions of the French Prime Minister I desired to emulate. There is a particular phrase in French which you must use with care. I didn't. I meant to say there are many different policies of the French Prime Minister that I desire to emulate. What I actually said was that I desire the French Prime Minister in many different positions. Anyway, so here I am at Yale, set to come back for the fall semester. My old Oxford tutor was, I'm afraid, horrified to hear I'd been taken on by Yale. His worries were all for Yale, I may say. He said, I only hope for their sake you're going there to learn rather than to teach. Now, I know you Yale guys are smart. So what can I tell you that you don't already think you know? I can tell you something of the world as I see it. 3 days ago, in my role as Middle East envoy, I stood in the heart of Bethlehem. On one side of me lay the concrete barrier which now separates Israel and Palestine. On the other, the historic birthplace of Jesus and the land of Palestine beyond. A few days before that, I was in Jericho. And if you look up from the town center, to the left is the Mount of Temptation, where Jesus spent 40 days and 40 nights. And to the right, you can see Mount Nebo, where Moses looked down on the promised land. And right in front of you is the Valley of Jordan. And my guide, a Muslim, turned to me and said, Moses and Jesus, Muhammad, why in God's name do they all have to come here? But in God's name they came. And for centuries their followers have waged war in the name of prophets whose life work was in pursuit of peace. Today, though, the land that encompasses Israel and Palestine, which is small, has a conflict which symbolizes the wider prospects of the entire vast region of the Middle East and beyond. And there the forces of modernization and moderation battle with those of reaction and extremism, and the shadow of Iran looms large. What is at stake is immense. Will those who believe in peaceful coexistence triumph, matching the growing economic power and wealth with a politics and a culture at ease with the 21st century? Or will the victors be those that seek to use that economic power to create a politics and culture more relevant to the feudal Middle Ages? thousands of miles from here. This struggle is being played out in the suburbs of Baghdad and Beirut and the Gaza Strip. But the impact of its outcome on our security here and our way of life here will register in the core of our well-being. In fact, if I had to sum up my view of the world, I would say to you, turn your thoughts to the East, not just to the Middle East, but to the Far East. For the first time in many centuries, power is moving east. China and India each have populations roughly double those of America and Europe combined. And in the next 2 decades, those two countries together will undergo industrialization 4 times the size of the USA's and at 5 times the speed. We must be mindful that as these ancient civilizations become somehow younger and more vibrant, our young civilization does not grow old. Most of all, we should know that in this new world, we must clear a path to partnership, not stand off against each other, competing for power. The world in which you, in time to come, will take the reins cannot afford a return to the 20th century struggles for hegemony. The characteristic of this world is the pace and scope and scale of globalization. Globalization is driving this change, and people are driving globalization. The consequence is the world opens up, its boundaries diminish, we are pushed closer together. The conclusion is that we make it work together or not at all. And the issues that you will wrestle with, the threat of climate change, food scarcity, population growth, worldwide terror based on religion, the interdependence of the world economy, my student generation would barely recognize. But the difference today is that they are all essentially global in nature. You understand this. Yale has become a melting pot of culture and language and civilization. You are the global generation, so be global citizens. Each new generation finds the world they enter, but they fashion the world they leave. So what do you inherit and what do you pass on? The history of humankind is marked by great events, but it's written by great people. People like you. Given Yale's record of achievement, perhaps by you. At this point, incidentally, I would like to thank the seniors who invited my son Ewan to the Yale naked parties. And I would like to thank my son Ewan for having refused the invitation. So to you as individuals then, what wisdom, if any, have I learned? First, in fact, keep learning. Always be alive to the possibilities of the next experience of thinking, doing, and being. When the Buddha was asked near the end of his life to describe his secret, he answered bluntly, "I'm awake." So be awake. Understand conventional wisdom, but be prepared to change it. Feel as well as analyze. Use your instinct alongside your reason. Calculate too much and you miscalculate. Be prepared to fail as well as to succeed, because it is failure, not success, that defines character. I spent years trying to be a politician, failing at every attempt and nearly gave up. I know you're thinking, I should have. Sir Paul McCartney reminded me that the first record company the Beatles approached rejected them as a band no one would want to listen to. Be good to people on your way up, because you never know if you will meet them again on your way down. Judge someone by how they treat those below them, not those above them. Be a firm friend, not a fair weather friend. It's your friendships, including those here at Yale at this time, that will sustain and enrich the human spirit. You know, a good test of a person is who turns up at their funeral and with what sincerity. Try not to sit the test too early, of course. Recently, I attended a funeral and the speaker said he would like to begin by reading a list of all those whose funerals he would rather have been attending, but the list was too long. It was kind of a sweet compliment to our friend. Alternatively, there was Spike Milligan, the quintessential English comic, who, when he was asked what he would like as the epitaph on his tombstone, replied, "They should write, 'I told you I was ill.'" There was a colleague of mine in the British Parliament who once asked another, "Why do people take such an instant dislike to me?" and got the reply, "Because it saves time." So when others think of you, let them think not with their lips, but their hearts of a good friend and a gracious acquaintance. Above all, however, have a purpose in life. Life is not about living, but about striving. When you get up motivated. Live with a perpetual sense of urgency. And make at least part of that purpose about something bigger than you. There are great careers. There are also great causes. At least let some of them into your lives. Giving lifts the heart in a way that getting never can. And maybe it really was Oscar Wilde who said, "No one ever died saying, 'If only I had one more day at the office.'" One small but shocking sentence. Each year, 3 million children die in Africa from preventable disease or conflict. The key word, preventable. When all is said and done, there is usually more said than done. So be a doer and not a commentator. Seek responsibility rather than shirk it. People often ask me about leadership, and I say leadership is about wanting the responsibility to be on your shoulders, not ignoring its weight, but knowing someone has to carry it, and reaching out for that person to be you. Leaders are heat seekers, not heat deflectors. And luck, you have all the luck you need. You are here at Yale, and what apart from the hats could be better? And you have something else, your parents. You know, when you're your age, you can never imagine being our age. But believe me, when you're our age, we remember clearly being your age. That's why I'm so careful about young men and my daughter. Don't tell me what you're thinking, I know what you're thinking. But as a parent, let me tell you something about parents. Despite all rational impulses, despite all evidence to the contrary, despite what we think you do to us and what you think we do to you, and yes, it is often hell on both sides, the plain, unvarnished truth is that we love you, simply, profoundly, and utterly. I remember back in the mists of time. Yes, the parents, you see? Yeah. And you love them too, don't you? Right, there you go. I remember back in the mists of time, my dad greeting me off the train at Durham railway station. And I was a student at Oxford. Oxford and Cambridge are for Britain kind of like Yale and Harvard, only more so. So it was a big deal. I'd been away for my first year and I was coming home. I stepped off the train. My hair was roughly the length of Rumpelstiltskin's and unwashed. I had no shoes and no shirt. My jeans were torn, and this was in the days before this became a fashion item. Worst of all, we just moved house. Mum had thrown out the sitting room drapes. I had retrieved them and made a sleeveless long coat with them. My dad greeted me. There were all his friends at the station. Beside me, their kids looked like paragons of respectability. He saw the drapes. He visibly winced. They did kind of stand out. So I took pity on them. Dad, I said, there's good news. I don't do drugs. My dad looked me in the eye and he said, son, the bad news is if you're looking like this and you're not doing drugs, we got a real problem. So your parents look at you today with love. They know how hard it is to make the grade, and they respect you for making it. And tomorrow, as I know, as a parent of one of the graduate classes, you receive your graduation. Their hearts will beat with the natural rhythm of pride. Pride in what you've achieved, pride in who you are. They will be nervous for you as you stand on the threshold of a new adventure, for they know the many obstacles that lie ahead. But they will be confident that you can surmount those obstacles, for they know also the strength of character and of spirit that has taken you thus far. So, to my fellow parents, I say, let us rejoice and be glad together. And to the Yale College Class of 2008, I say, well done. May blessings and good fortune be yours in all the years to come. Thank you very much indeed.